Let's wake it up. Let's just wake it up. I think that what we need to do, truthfully, is to wake it up. I think we should wake it up. All right, let's get it. Welcome into another episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I am Will Thomas, and we are winding down our transfer portal series with the final four schools we have to get to, starting off today with the Tennessee Volunteers. So Josh Heupel and Tennessee Vols, they went to the playoff 2 years ago and lost to Ohio State, who eventually won the championship. And then last year, after the Nico saga in the spring, bringing in Joey Aguilar as their quarterback late in the year, they just made it to the Music City Bowl where they lost to Illinois. But looking forward to this season, it seems like Tennessee is in the year before the year, right? Looking at their roster, looking at how much young talent they have, and the portal guys they brought in are very, very good. But this year, I think is sort of, stepping stone year, because next year, if Tennessee's players do pan out and they're able to retain some of the coaching staff and the young guys are playing like we think they could, I think that 2027 for Tennessee could be the year. 2026 you're going to see as the year before the year. But let's get into who they lost in the portal this offseason and who they brought in as they get ready to try and really make some noise in the SEC this season. Starting off with Lance Hurd. He's going out. The big offensive tackle is out of Knoxville. He was he was a big-time player physically, literally and figuratively for Tennessee on that offensive line. So losing a major piece at the offensive tackle position, obviously it's a premium spot on that offensive line. So we'll see later on how they plan to backfill that with the loss of Lance Hurd and how they want to round out that offensive line. Defensively, they're losing Ricky Gibson at corner. Just elite traits on this kid. Him and Jermod McCoy were an incredible cornerback duo. Unfortunately, they were both hurt for most of last year, so you didn't really get to see either of them play very much. But Ricky Gibson, we know how good he is. He's at Texas A&M this year, so he'll be making plays for the Aggies down there in College Station and not in Knoxville for the Vols. And also losing someone on the defensive side, it's Jordan Ross coming off the edge. He was a former five-star guy. He's 6'5", 245 coming off the edge. Now, I've talked about him a ton because we had the LSU video early on in the series, which is where he went. And I just think that, he's such a freak athlete. He only had a sack and a half last year, but you're seeing him get developed, right? And you're seeing him as he grows into this game. Like, he had a chase down strip sack on Taylor Green last year. Taylor Green's an alien. He's going to be an NFL quarterback. So making that play is incredible. So Jordan Ross, unbelievable traits. LSU was able to pull him away. But that is, that's a pretty big loss for Tennessee's D-line. And it doesn't help that they also lost Caleb Herring. Now, he's going to South Carolina, but another edge rusher with just elite traits. 6'5", 245, exact same measurables as Jordan Ross. Now, he had 4 sacks last year, so he's a little bit more of a proven commodity. But losing both those guys coming off the edge, it hurts. And another defensive player that they lost was Boo Carter, a safety. So he had character issues for Tennessee. He was off the field, not for injuries for a lot of it, but just off the field stuff. He's a quality player. Right, so it wasn't working out regardless. It is best for both sides that he is moving on. He's at Colorado now. But Boo Carter is no longer with Tennessee. He is now out west. And just some other guys who left I wanted to highlight. Peyton Lewis at running back. He's a good rotational runner. Jake Merklinger at tight end. He was a great check down option, great release option in the passing game for the Vols last season. And then Max Gilbert, their kicker. This is kind of another mutual. We should probably move on because he missed some clutch kicks last season. The fan base wasn't super happy with him. He's kind of needed a new spot to go put some kicks up. But now moving on to who the Vols brought in. Starting off with someone who we need a lot of answers on. It's Chaz Coleman from Penn State coming off the edge. He was one of the top players, if not the top player, in the portal this past season. He's having trouble off the field right now. And it's not as much character issues as it is he's struggling with where he is. Like, he's struggling being in Tennessee. Right, it's homesickness. It's not being in a familiar environment. So there are reports that maybe he's going to have one of his siblings come live with him in Tennessee to try and make it feel more like home. So he's just having issues adapting. It's not really a character issue. It's more of just struggles off the field for Chaz Coleman. They need him to come back, though, does Tennessee. They need him to be available. They need him to be ready because they paid a lot of money for him in the portal. Chaz Coleman is an elite defensive player. So they need him to be a part of that scheme if they're going to be good. Another defender who's also from Penn State is Xavier Gilliam, a defensive lineman. He's another freshman on the defensive line. He's 6'2", 302. You had a lot of Penn State guys come over. I'll get to one more, and that's because Tennessee went out and hired Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator from Penn State. Now, he is a really good D coordinator. And sort of the read on Jim Knowles in terms of installing his game plan, his scheme, is that it takes a while. It's very complex. So you're not really expecting your guys to learn it very quickly. But if it's a bunch of Penn State guys, it's much easier. So you have Chaz Coleman coming over. You have Xavier Gilliam coming over on the D-line. They're also bringing in Amari Campbell at linebacker. He's a fourth-year guy. So he's a veteran. He'll have no problem. He was only with Jim Knowles, I believe, for 1 year of those 3 years prior. But he's a veteran guy. He had 64 tackles and 3 sacks last year. So Amari Campbell is a guy that Jim Knowles can really rely on. They also brought in TJ Metcalf, a safety from Michigan. So another Big Ten player, even though he's not coming from Penn State on defense. But another fourth-year guy. He's 6'1", 200, so some pretty good size there in the back end. He had 37 tackles and a pick last season. Another DB who they also brought in was Kayan Lee, a corner from Auburn, who had 25 tackles last year and a pick. Both TJ Metcalf and Kayan Lee have pretty boring stat sheets if you look them up on ESPN or whatever. So people will look at that and they'll say, oh, he's not doing anything. What's the value in adding this guy? If you're a DB, you want no stats in your box score because that means that quarterbacks aren't throwing to your side. It means that you're shutting down an entire half of a football field. So both Kayan Lee and TJ Metcalf have really boring box scores, which is a very good thing for a DB coming out of the portal. And then offensively, maybe their biggest add based on how the quarterback battle shapes out, but it's Javen Gordon, a running back from Tulane. He had 128 carries for over 500 yards and 5 scores last year as a freshman, so he's a young guy, 5'10", 200 pounds. He's an absolute bowler. So being a freshman, doesn't have too many carries on him. He can be a reliable guy for you in the replacement of Peyton Lewis. You still got Deshaun Bishop back there. So Tennessee can have a very good running game. And they put in a quarterback, did Tennessee. Ryan Staub from Colorado. He's competing for that job along with Faison Brandon and George McIntyre. So we'll see how that quarterback battle shapes out. We're not going to have much clarity on that probably until the fall, at least externally. Internally, they might have an answer sooner. But Ryan Staub could easily be their quarterback. He's got a little more experience. Faison Brandon obviously is that 5-star true freshman. I don't know if how comfortable Heupel will be running him out there. And then George McIntyre, a little more experience, but we'll see what happens with that quarterback battle. So really the story of Tennessee's portal is defense. And that makes sense because their defense last year was horrible. It was such a bad defense last year. And the general narrative around Heupel teams at Tennessee especially has been relying on offense. If you go to their playoff team 2 years ago, it was defense. It was not offense. So it really starts with defense for Heupel's Tennessee teams and bringing over Jim Knowles, who is a great D coordinator, and bringing over a bunch of his talented guys from Penn State really is a massive win. And it's a huge step in terms of correcting that defense. And it doesn't all hinge on getting Chaz Coleman in the right headspace to come be a great player for you, but a lot of it does because I talked about how much they lost on the edge in Jordan Ross and Caleb Herring leaving. Getting Chaz Coleman to come play for you off the edge is massive. So hopefully he'll be able to get comfortable and be able to go out there for Tennessee. But the Vols did a pretty good job with this portal class. They backfilled a ton of their holes, especially on defense, and offensively they have so much pure raw talent. So like I said, I don't know if they can really compete. They can compete in the SEC, but I'm not sure they make a push to win the SEC this year or make the playoff this year. I do believe you're going to see a lot of almost there sort of vibes with the Vols this year because 2027, I believe that Tennessee, if the pieces stay in place, that's when they can really compete. But that'll do it for this episode of Tailgate Talk SEC doing Tennessee's portal class. We've got 3 more videos. I'll release one each day. So if your team is one of those 3, subscribe to me here. Follow me on Twitter. I'll have those out for you guys this week. But if you have just been enjoying this portal content and you want all of the SEC football coverage throughout all summer long leading up to the season, just follow me here. I'll be doing it all summer long. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I've been Will Thomas, and I will see you next time.